Okay, welcome back. We're here one more time to look at the advanced inputs that came with version 10. And in this instance, we're going to look at the text box. So the scriptable text box. Now, this is going to be a lot of fun. I got to say, looking forward to version 10, this was the one that I was really looking forward to because I would use it as a design flag, for example, where you can going through a design calculation, you can identify very visually that all of your design checks have been met and color them red or green or something like that as appropriate. So I was really looking forward to it. I got to admit, when version 10 came out and they went for a very adaptable, scriptable control, I was a little put off because I'm not a scripting guy. I don't easily adapt to doing a lot of scripts. I've never done JScript before. But that being said, I'm reasonably comfortable around Boolean logic and everything else. Obviously, we use it in our Mathcad sheets. So I figured I would see if I could, on my own, just basically work my way through and figure out how to do it. And so that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get an expert scripter on how to do this, but you're going to see a demonstration of what you can very quickly figure out just by looking at a few examples and otherwise being comfortable in that Boolean logic. So we're back to our ballistic sheet. We have our two-dimensional ballistics that we were looking at last time. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to get a visual cue as to whether I'm going to hit a target. So to do that, I need to know where the target is. So I've defined a variable dTarget, set it in this case equals to 18 meters. And then we already know where the shot will land. That was this calculation. You've seen it before, so I'm not going to go over it again, but I'll just scroll down so you can see it in case you're new to this particular sheet. And so I'm just going to define the distance from the target where the projectile lands as x at t at f, so the position in the x direction at the final time minus the distance of the target. And that's going to give me a value for where the target is. So to make my script box work, I needed to have a couple more bits of information. So I'm going to set up a couple tolerances. So I'm using the variable h. I set it to 1 meter, and this is basically I'm going to consider it a hit if I'm within 1 meter of the target. And then I used an n for a near miss, set it equal to 3 meters, and basically the way I'm going to program the script is that it will identify as a near miss if the value d target is between 1 and 2 meters of the target, and anything greater than that will be considered a miss. So with that, we should have all the information. It's going to be a bit of a slog to get through some of the scripting, but I think we should be able to do it, so why don't we get into it? So we're going to go up, input, output, over to the advanced tab, and we're going to choose a text box. Okay, and I'm just going to call this success, and we're ready to go. So the first thing we have to do is I have to pass some arguments into the script so that it has available variables in order to do the calculation. So if I'm going to right click here, I'm going to add inputs, and the first input that I want to give it is the distance d that I calculated just above that. Now we still need a couple more variables. We need to know what these tolerance values are. I could hard code them in, but in this case I've set it up so that I could change the tolerances in the Mathcad sheet if I wanted to. So kind of a bit strange, a little not necessarily intuitive. To add additional variables here, we're going to use the matrix tabs. We go up to matrices, and we're going to insert to the right and insert again, and that allows us to put in h and n. And those variables then will be passed to the script so that it can do some calculations on it. Okay, I'm just going to right click again. We're going to bring up our box. We can make it a little bit larger if our script is going to take more space. And in this case, we're going to be dealing with the script. So in dealing with the script, we need to give ourselves some lines here. So we're adding some script to where the execution of the box is. And so the first thing I need to do is define the variables that we have coming in. So a few spaces to give myself some formatting. Variable, the first one that we brought in, if you recall, was the D, and it's going to be inputs 0 and equal to the value of that first one. And we finish that off with a semicolon. So because I'm a slow typist, I'm just going to copy, paste that a couple times. So the other two variables that we passed were H for a hit and an N for a near miss. Let me get that. And they're going to be the first and the second values. Okay, so that sets us up. Now, really all we're going to do is we're just going to go through a couple nested if statements so that we can figure out which is true, whether it's a hit, a near miss, or a miss. And then we're going to format the text box based on what that information is. So again, just heading over, we'll set it up as an if. And that's D is less than our H tolerance. I'll add some spaces in here just so it looks decent. And then we need our parentheses to open that up. And so now, if this is true, what we want to do is to give our text box some color. So we're going to choose the foreground color, which should be the text color. And now, here's the funny thing. Whenever you do colors here, you need the hexadecimal code. There's all sorts of places online where you can go get the code and look up what the code would be for different colors. And so I've done that. I can, if you like, I can look it up and put a link to one of those many websites down below. But for my case, so for a hit, that would be success. So we're going to call that green. And if I did this right, that should be 0x. And the other thing we want to do, so if that gives it the font color, I also want to give a value, as in a word or a script that's going to be carried by the box. And so once again, we go over here, we go text box. And in this case, we're talking about the text. And we're going to give it a value of hit. And that's one side of my Boolean equation, so I'm going to give it a semicolon. That's going to move it into the next spot. So we go down to this line and we close our parentheses and we want an else and open our parentheses for the else. And now we're into our nested if. So in this case, we're doing our D is greater than, I'll try to keep it all looking about the same, N, close brackets, if that's true, so we open it up, and as before, we're going to give it some values, so we're going to give it a text box for color, hopefully I'm getting these right. I'm just copying them in from what I looked up before. And like before, we want to give an indicator text box dot text. In this case, it's a miss. and close it with the semicolon. And now we want the second else. So we close that, else, open that. There we go. And I think if I add those up, I've got two still open, so I need to close it twice. And if I haven't made any mistakes, I'm thinking this will work, right? You can just follow through the logic. Distance less than your tolerance to hit, it's going to be a hit. Otherwise, it's going to go to the next one. So if it's greater than the tolerance for a near miss, that means it's going to be a total miss. So it's going to do that. Otherwise, following that logic, it's going to be a near miss. So let's see if this is going to work. And there we go. It seems to be working. So we have a near miss under the current situation. So 2.89 meters, which is between 1 and 3. And so that should be true. Now I'm just going to, you can change your velocity or any of your other settings. I'm just going to change the distance to the target just to test this. So if it's 17 meters, it's now a miss because the distance is greater than 3 meters. And if I'm at 19, that's not going to do it, 19 meters, that's still a near miss. So let's try 20. And we get our hit. Now there are a few just visual controls that you can use on the text box itself. So the first one is you probably don't want all of these variables in that showing. So we're just going to take that and turn it into a plus sign. So it collapses out all of the variables that you're handing to it. And if you don't want the actual variable success showing up, so we go back up into our input output. We have this selected. And where is it? Oh, no, we have to be inside it. And we can hide the left-hand side and we can just see it there. And so as you come up with different values, again, we'll just go back to 18 and there you go. You're getting a near miss. So that's the text box. Now there's so much more you can do with it. Obviously, because it's a fully scripted control, you can bake in all of the logic that you need directly into the control itself. You can control the background colors and borders and everything else. So it gives you a lot of control to put these flags within your worksheets, particularly your design worksheets. Wherever you do a design test, you can put in one of these scriptable controls and get a visual cue right away as to whether the design criteria is being met. So I think this is going to be really useful. Yeah, the scripting is a little bit intimidating. It was for me, but I think it took me probably about 10 minutes of looking at it and trialing and error until I had it working. So it's certainly not a challenge. And then, of course, you can start copying and pasting once you have your first one working. So hopefully that was helpful. I know I'm going to be using this control in a lot of my worksheets. So I hope you find it functional for you. So if that's helpful, hopefully I'll see you on the next video where we'll look at another one of the advanced controls. Have a great day.